daily fantasy sports. The most addictive thing you can do on your phone, other than perhaps cocaine. If you own a television, you cannot have missed their ads.
Get to DraftKings.com right now for one-day games that let you win daily.
FanDuel packs the thrill of a whole season into just 1 week.
With FanDuel, there's no season-long commitment.
Are your dreams big enough to cash a giant check? Play free with promo code TROT.
Enter promo code YouTube60.
Use the promo code CLEAN6.
Enter promo code BANG9.
Yes, daily fantasy sports combine everything dudes love: sport, money, and a lack of commitment. And I will say, the promo code really gives it an air of exclusivity. It's like you've just joined an elite supper club whose password is BANG9. It's been impossible to avoid those ads. A few months ago, the two main daily fantasy sites, DraftKings and FanDuel, were airing a national TV ad every 90 seconds. You only need to remind people of something that often if your target market is sports-loving goldfish. Now, for those who don't know, let me quickly explain to you what daily fantasy is. Until fairly recently, fantasy sports used to be a season-long game where you and your co-workers picked imaginary teams of players, put $20 each in a pot, and eventually lost to Janice in accounting, which would have been extremely upsetting, and I'll tell you why. She don't give a about sports. She don't give a But daily fantasy is very different. With daily fantasy, you can go online, typically pay an entry fee of anything from 25 cents to thousands of dollars, pick a team for just a week or a day, and compete against total strangers. It's the same as season-long fantasy, the way a nice mug of tea is the same as a nice baggie of heroin. Now, both give you a lovely warm feeling, one's a little more intense. And many TV networks are not just airing daily fantasy ads, they're making deals with these companies.
We should note NBC Sports Group and NBC's parent company Comcast are among the investors in FanDuel.
This is something I should disclose. The 21st Century Fox owns a stake in DraftKings.
We should mention that CNN's parent company, Time Warner, has made an investment in FanDuel.
As a matter of disclosure, ESPN has an exclusive 2-year marketing agreement with DraftKings worth reported $250 million.
Wow! At this point, there is almost no show that is not financially compromised by a relationship with daily fantasy, including Yell at Your Daughter Till She Dances on Lifetime. In fact, just so you know, HBO is a subsidiary of Time Warner, which means that this joke about being compromised is, in a sense, brought to you by FanDuel. and I'll say, thanks, guys. And it's not just TV networks. Some of the sports leagues themselves have closely partnered with these sites.
The NBA has an equity stake in FanDuel, MLB has one in DraftKings, and many NFL teams have advertising deals with the fantasy sites.
In fact, 28 of the NFL's 32 teams have sponsorship deals with either DraftKings or FanDuel, and the Cowboys and the Patriots owners are both investors in DraftKings. And of course, in a way, leagues and networks like the idea of daily fantasy. It's frankly the only thing that's going to make people want to watch the Bucks and the Jaguars face off on a rainy Thursday night. Because no one is watching just to witness the majesty of Tampa Bay kicker Connor Barth, unless you are Connor's mom. And even then, she might DVR it. I'm sorry, Connor, but it is Thursday. It's scandal night. I've got Shondalands right through. Have a good kick. I hope you kick good. But it's a little weird to see professional sports in cahoots with these sites, because most leagues have generally been opposed to gambling. Unlicensed gambling is illegal in most states, and these sites do look a lot like gambling. And don't just take that from me. Take it from Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath.
Do you feel like it's gambling? Is that what you do when you play fantasy sports?
Do they have to pay anything to play?
I think you have to pay.
And do they win something?
They do.
That's gambling.
Okay. So, Joe Namath, a man so lacking in discernment, he wore this to the Super Bowl. Even he can see that this is gambling. And he's not alone. Just last month, the Gaming Control Board of Nevada ruled it was gambling, essentially arguing if people are going to lose all their money pressing buttons on a screen, that screen better have Sex and the City characters on it. And just this week, there was another development.
Big trouble for those daily fantasy sports sites FanDuel and DraftKings. New York's Attorney General says they amount to illegal gambling.
Yes, the New York Attorney General is attempting to shut down daily fantasy in the state. And if that happens, the best way to gamble here will once again be buying meat on a stick from a guy with a cart. Why does my chicken have whiskers? Do you know what? I'm hungry, I'm rolling the dice. But both major daily fantasy sites insist that they've done nothing wrong. In fact, DraftKings even claims on its website that it's 100% legal, which is immediately suspicious. If the guy at TCBY said this frozen yogurt is 100% legal, you would know that somehow it was a product of the illegal sex trade. And both companies bristle at the very word gambling, insisting that they are something far more benign.
You don't view what you do here at FanDuel as gambling.
No.
That's a word that isn't used very much around here, I take it.
Because every time that you talk to our users, what comes through loud and clear is the fact that we're an entertainment product.
Okay, sure, but you know what else is an entertainment product? Gambling. Gambling is incredibly entertaining. Until, of course, you're down 15 grand to a Russian entertainment syndicate. But when DraftKings, in particular, claims that it's not gambling, it's worth noting that not only have they applied for and received a gambling licence in the UK, but according to the Nevada Attorney General, their website once had search engine optimisation phrases with multiple instances of the word betting. And sites usually use alt text like that to tell search engines what they are. It's why this show's website is tagged with British Nerd, Brit Dork, News Goof and Birdie Fact Funny Man. So here's the question. How can DraftKings say they are not gambling and 100% legal? Well, daily fantasy sites often point to one particular piece of legislation, the 2006 Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, or UIGEA.
Right now, of course, fantasy sports being a game of skill is carved out of UIGEA and permissible in most states in the U.S. I just think under the current law right now, it's very obvious that this fits within skill gaming.
Now, what he's referring to in his charismatic, monotone, sleep-inducing voice is that in 2006, when Congress passed a law to crack down on online gambling, it exempted fantasy sports, which, remember, back then, were just those office things that you lost to Janice in accounting. It was meant to be a very small exception, but through that small carve-out, two multi-billion-dollar businesses have emerged. It's like those lawmakers built a doggy door for a beloved pooch, and then daily fantasy came bursting through like a pack of wolves saying, "We are dogs. It's a doggy door, right? That's for us. We're legally dogs. Woof." Right? Tell them. Woof. Woof. Step aside, woof. But even the guy who co-wrote that law says it wasn't meant to apply to what fantasy sports have now become.
The U.S. congressman who drafted the 2006 legislation used by DraftKings and FanDuel as proof of their legitimacy is upset. Former lawmaker Jim Leach says it is, quote, sheer schutzpah for the daily fantasy sports sites to pretend the law makes them legal.
Okay. First of all, schutzpah is actually pronounced chutzpah, but the idea that daily fantasy sites are using this law to claim they're not gambling is not chutzpah, it's horse shit. Because that law, interestingly, that law never said fantasy sports were legal. It just said they weren't explicitly illegal under that specific law, but that each state's gambling laws would continue to apply. And in general, most states determine whether or not something is gambling by asking whether it's more of a game of chance or more a game of skill. And if being a game of chance could make you gambling and therefore illegal, it's no wonder that daily fantasy sites like to describe themselves like this.
They are games of skill, and we can prove that through data that we have.
If skill is a predominant factor in the game, then it's a game of skill. And we can show that our game, like traditional fantasy sports, it is skill predominant.
It's legally critical to these companies that they be perceived as games of skill. That's why, every time they talk, you hear the word skills more often than during an underground rap battle. In fact, just this Friday, daily fantasy supporters actually held a protest rally outside the New York Attorney General's office with a familiar chant.
Game of skill! Game of skill! Game of skill!
Now, if you're thinking it's a little odd that ordinary fans were chanting something so legally specific, there may actually be a reason for that.
Behind me this morning, there were about 250 people here. They blocked the sidewalk, a lot of police, a lot of protesters making a lot of noise. But 100 of those 250 people were employees of FanDuel themselves because their offices are right here in Union Square.
They used their own employees as protesters. If you are trying to make the argument that you're not a shady gambling-related company, maybe don't openly stack the deck in your favour. Which is not to say that daily fantasy does not involve skill. It actually might involve a lot more skill than they would like you to be aware of, because this summer a study revealed some shocking numbers.
91% of the profits were won by just the top 1.3% of players during the first half of the baseball season. 85% of players were losers.
85% of fantasy players were losers, which is staggering. In the general population, that number is 40% at best. It essentially breaks down like this. 40% losers, 40% arseholes, 14% weirdos, 5% decent human beings, and then, of course, Beyoncé. And if you are wondering what it takes to be part of that big winning 1%, let me show you.
Albertson made over $200,000 playing fantasy sports last year. In drafting his fantasy teams, Albertson spends hours each day studying his own homemade algorithms that track thousands of up-to-the-minute statistics and player projections. Projections that even factor in the hourly weather forecasts and wind conditions in each stadium.
This is every pitcher basically in baseball. You've got dozens of rows of statistics.
Yes, fantasy sports are effectively dominated by numbers nerds with sophisticated algorithms, which is great news for anyone who wished Moneyball could somehow be a bit more boring. But it's not great news for a casual player, and it somewhat undercuts the key selling point in their ads.
Anybody can win. It's not just a game for professionals, it's a game for everybody, and FanDuel's made it where anybody can play, anybody can succeed.
Yeah, but anybody can succeed is a bit of a stretch when only 1% of the players are winning most of the money. To say anyone can succeed on daily fantasy is a bit like saying that I could be the next James Bond. Sure, it's a mathematical possibility, but it's a long shot. It's a different movie. It's a different movie. Not better or worse, just different. So these daily fantasy sites may be in a bit of a quandary. Under our hazy gambling laws, the more they're a game of skill, the stronger their legal case usually is, but the less appealing they become to the average player. And there's actually a precedent for an online amalgam of skill and chance. Unfortunately, for daily fantasy, it's poker, which most states consider gambling. And you would think, if these sites were smart, they would run away as fast as they could from any comparison to poker.
So if you go and play DraftKings, it actually, in many ways, has a similar feel to poker. The games have payout structures that are similar, and there's a lot of different variety where you can play head-to-head all the way up to larger tournaments.
The way he's describing daily fantasy and poker is so similar, most people could not tell them apart. They're like alligators and crocodiles, or Amy Adams and Isla Fisher. Are those two different people or the same person twice? It's impossible to tell. Nobody knows. And the similarities between online poker and daily fantasy don't stop there. Remember Cory Albertson, the guy with the homemade algorithm? Guess where he honed those skills?
In a past life, he was a professional poker player.
He's all in and in trouble against Cory Albertson, both with a pair of jacks.
But then he discovered daily fantasy sports and has been winning big against his online opponents ever since.
Look, if it attracts the same people and requires the same sorts of skills, it's safe to say it is somewhat similar. It's like finding out an Olympic gymnast has joined Cirque du Soleil, or an Olympic snowboarder has joined a Colorado pot dispensary. There's connective tissue there. That's all I'm saying. And in case its connection to the world of poker was not clear enough, guess who was a sponsor of the World Series of Poker this year?
The World Series of Poker main event telecast presented by DraftKings.
They're basically saying, if you love gambling, you'll love DraftKings, for completely unrelated reasons. Look, by any rational definition, daily fantasy is gambling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. People clearly love it. But if we're going to de facto legalise sports gambling across the US, we should at least do it on purpose, and not because two companies have somehow weaseled out a way to pretend that they are not something that they clearly are. Because gambling enterprises, wherever they are legal, are regulated to protect people. And that's going to need to happen here. And until such time, if they're going to keep bombarding us with those ads, they should at least make them a little more honest.
Daily fantasy is the hottest new way to make real money.
As soon as I tried DraftKings, I was hooked. I've been using FanDuel since I saw those commercials on TV all the time.
I turned $35 into $2 million into $40 into $0 on FanDuel.
Daily fantasy is the best. I get to play every day.
You mean you get to gamble?
It's not gambling.
Oh, it's definitely gambling. You have a massive gambling problem.
It's actually a skills-based game that is going to make us rich one day.
You're an idiot.
I'm a winner.
With daily fantasy, anyone can win.
I've won $784,000 on FanDuel.
See? You can compete against millions of regular sports fans just like you.
I have a master's degree in statistics and have designed an advanced algorithm that incorporates real-time weather condition updates and can calculate an earned run average to the 20th decimal point. Hey, Jocks, how does it feel to be a nerd's bitch?
Daily Fantasy Sports is the only skills-based entertainment product where you can win big money.
You're a winner?
I'm a winner.
How the f are you a winner?
How the f am I a winner? I'll tell you how the f I'm a winner. I won $6.18 playing daily fantasy. That's how the f I'm a winner.
You spent $1,200.
Well, that's what you gotta do. You gotta spend money to make money.
To make $6.18, you spent $1,200.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I don't understand you.
It's because you don't understand sports, sweetie.
I understand math.
Don't listen to the critics. Daily Fantasy is a legitimate business.
Daily fantasy has the support of the NFL. When have they ever been associated with anything shady?
The best part about it is that it's currently legal. So I'm excited about that.
Look at the size of this check.
Oh, here we go with the check.
Look at this check.
$1,200 and you won $6.18.
You saying I'm not a big winner?
You spent $18 printing out this check at Kinko's.
Well, I was proud that I won. And look who the check is made out to. Big winner. Your f***ing husband.
Oh, why don't you put it where the TV used to go, asshole?
Daily Fantasy Sports is just pure fun, and it's so simple.
I just watch football and win money. I know that sounds too good to be true. In fact, even saying it out loud now, I'm realizing that can't possibly be true. Can you give me a minute?
I hate you so much!
Daily fantasy is not just fun. It's who I am. It's what the f I do. I'm gonna turn this into a full-time career.
I'm pregnant.
And if you're concerned that daily fantasy sounds like gambling, don't worry, it isn't.
It's not gambling. It's playing a game where my cash winnings depend on the performance of professional athletes. Wait, I described gambling again, didn't I?
With daily fantasy, all you need is a love of sports.
I think I just realized it at this very moment. I actually hate you.
Fantastic. I hate me too. So that's something we agree on for the first time in a while.
Is there something stronger than a divorce that we could get? Like a super divorce?
If there was, we probably couldn't afford it.
Play daily fantasy now. Just use promo code GAMBLING, or promo code OBVIOUSLY GAMBLING, or promo code exploiting a legal loophole, but by any common sense definition, this is gambling.